Hi, my name is Olivia. You are welcome to my channel. Today we are going to learn how to make an exaggerated puff sleeve. So if this is something you are interested in and you love to learn, then please keep on watching. We have a tutorial on how to make a basic body sleeve on this channel. So this is the sleeve I will use to make the exaggerated sleeve. Alright, so on this long sleeve I'll mark the desired length of the puff sleeve I want. So I'll use 9.5. So I'll mark that and mark it across the sleeve. I'll go ahead and add 1/2 inch allowance to the hem of the sleeve. This is now my short basic sleeve, and then I'll use stiff to make the main sleeve, and I'm using stiff because I will stiff the fabric before I stitch, so I don't want to use another paper. I just want to use the stiff instead. I really hope that made sense. So I'm marking a starting line like this. I forgot to mention this, the stiff should be at least 3 inches longer than your main sleeve length. Okay, so from the starting line I'll mark 3 inches down like this. And that is where the main sleeve will start. So from the folded part of the stiff, I'll mark 2.5. So this depends on how wide you want the exaggerated sleeve to be. So this is the folded part of the stiff or the gum stay, as well as the main sleeve. So away from the folded part I'll mark 2.5. So the more you mark, the bigger the sleeve becomes. So I'll place it on it this way and pin it down. And then I'm going to use my free hand to just exaggerate the sleeve. Please follow what I just did, okay? So I'll just make sure I curve it nicely in the form of sleeve. All right, so I'll go ahead and measure around the armhole of the main sleeve, so I'll measure it, and then I'll measure the exaggerated sleeve as well. So the excess will be pleated. Okay, so next I'll square up the sleeve. So you just measure this side like this, the same measurement you have, you measure it at the lower side and square it up. So here I'm taking note of the allowance. So I'll use this bridal satin for this project. I'll fold it into 2, and then I'll place it on fold like this, and I'll pin. If you want to make this sleeve, you definitely make 2 sleeves. So when you cut the pattern with the stiff, you can just place it on another stiff and then you cut for the other sleeve. All right, so I'll go ahead and cut, and then after cutting I'll use the same thing to cut the lining. I'll also iron the stiff to the lining. The stiff has to be ironed on the lining. So now if you check the sleeve, you realize that it's already puffy and structured, but I just feel you need another thing to make it structured, because satin is not strong, it's not a strong fabric, so adding stiff will make it a bit structured, but something else has to be added. So it's either you use crinoline is mostly used. I just thought, why not use ridgeline bone so that it will be more structured, because I'm using stiff. So I'm just experimenting to just see whether this will work, because I had no idea whether it will work or not. So I'll just experiment and use the bone instead. So what I'm going to do is to stitch the bone onto the lining 1/4 inch away from the edge of the lining, and also you measure the allowance you left on the sleeve and start away from the allowance, just like I'm doing. So this will prevent that side from being hard while stitching the sleeve together. Okay, I'll go ahead and stitch the bone on the lining, and then I'll show you how it looks. This is the result after stitching the bone on it. So the same way I stitch the bone is the same way you stitch the crinoline. All right, so if you are using a thick fabric or a thick material, all you have to do is to use the crinoline instead. All right, so I'll pin the lining to the main piece, and then afterwards I'll stitch, and then I'll later flip the excess to the lining and understitch. All right, so this is how it looks. I'll open up the sleeve, and then I'll place them right sides facing each other this way. Then I'll go ahead and stitch with the seam allowance I left on the sleeve pattern. Now I'll turn wrong sides facing each other like this, and whilst I do that, I'll open the seams also. I'll pin both the main piece and the lining together and stitch just 1/4 inch to keep them together. Now this is the time to pleat. So you pleat from the center, and then you continue pleating. So whilst you continue, you must take note of your round armhole measurement. So you pleat and then you measure as you go ahead. So if you measure and you realize it's big, you just have to pleat more, and then the same way, if it is small, you release few of the pleats. So after pleating, you stitch the pleated part to keep them in place. I really enjoyed making this sleeve. If you did, please like, and if it was helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on your post notification bell so anytime I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.